Hi, I'm Jay Sheldon, the Academy trainer here in the US. Today we'll be doing troubleshooting fault OB. That's 0B or OB. As you can see here on the boiler, we do have a 0B or an OB fault. OB fault for sure. If that was a 6, you would have a little hat over the top of it. So if we don't see that, make sure you stop and take a look at our video on how to achieve our last top 10 faults. Okay, so let's get started. Remember, we're going to power the boiler off, and the things that we want to check is our water pressure in the green. As we can see, the water pressure is in the green, which means we're above the 12 psi that you need to be activated on this boiler here. Remember, you got to remove the 2 screws on the very bottom to take the cover off, and then we're going to lift the cover off the top. Now we're going to shut the power off. And we'll make sure our boiler is isolated from the system side. And then we're going to start taking a look of what could cause it. So we do have, I did set up a hose prior to the class. So we have a hose on our drain line on the left-hand side of the boiler itself. I do have our hose for bleeding. We want to make sure we're going to check for air. And this does come with the boiler itself, as well as a key that comes with it. You'll find this key with your installation kit. So first we're going to check to make sure that there's no air in the system. I open the bleeder. As you can see, we do have water in the system. Before we get started with that, we're going to check what an OB fault is on our Pro login resources. So we'll go and see what caused the fault, how to fix the fault, and we'll go from there. Okay, we found out through the fault code checker that it is our flow switch problem or it's our pump problem. First thing we can check is to make sure that we do have power to our pump, as well as it's not airbound, the pump itself. So with this boiler here, we can check by taking a small cup, placing it under there. You can actually stick a rag under here as well. There's not going to be a lot of water coming into this cup as well. Once we get it under that large nut here, I'm just going to crack it to see if water comes out or if we get any type of air, which we got plenty of water coming out of there, so we know we got plenty of water in there. If not, we can also take a look at our shaft and make sure that the shaft is not frozen as well. But you'll see inside here there is a shaft, and there is either a flat tip screwdriver or an Allen wrench slot to put your Allen wrench in there to give the shaft a turn to make sure it's not frozen. As we saw here, the shaft is moving freely. So next thing we want to check is power to our pump. And our pump has 120 volts going to our pump. As we still have the power off, we're going to remove our plug. And we're going to check our 2 outer wires, plugs, for 120 volts. So now we have to turn our power back on and power it up. Now we'll take our meter and we'll put that on 120 volts, or we'll put it on volts. We're going to get the boiler to fire. So in this case here, what we'll do is we'll go to the mode button, hit our arrow until service is flashing. Once service is flashing, hit OK, and we're going to put it up to 20% to get the boiler to just fire to 20%. Hit OK. So now you can see that we do have 118 volts on our meter, so we know we have power going to the pump. All right, so let's power back down. Now when we power it back down, we're going to Put the cover back on our control. We'll plug back in our wire for our pump so we don't forget to do that later on. Grab our little cup of water here. All right, so now we got to locate our flow switch itself. What I normally do when I was in tech support was I have the guys go to the 33 plug. So this is your 33 plug. As you can see right on the thing, it says 33 here. It's upside down, but it's there. And then as well as we have 33 on this plug here. So you can see on this plug we have 33. What you could do to make sure that the flow switch is bad is you can jump this out with a small piece of wire and just jump it out if the boiler fires. You know you're good to go. The other thing is you can do a continuity check as well to see if the switch is in an open or closed position. I have had these get solder balls in them and they get stuck in position. Well, a lot of guys are still doing soldering as well. Pro presses come a long way. There are still guys that are doing pro press. So we did find out that we're going to put a jumper on this here. Let me just grab my jumper. So just a basic jumper. This just happens to be an old piece of T-stat wire that, you know, sometimes we find on the job site. And remember, we're going to not jump the switch itself, but the plug itself. So we're going to put the jumper in here. Then we're going to power our boiler back on and see if the boiler will fire. All right, the boiler did fire. So we're going to remove our jumper, shut the power back off so we know we have a bad flow switch. Shut the power back off. And now what we have to do is we're going to put our bag back on there. It's a pain, but just this little cheap plastic bag can save you some money from getting your damage to your control, getting water inside there that you don't see happen. So what we're going to do now is make sure we isolate back the boiler off. And we're going to drop our pressure on the boiler. Basically, here's our flow switch. So we're going to just drop the water. And there's only a gallon of water in this boiler. So what I like to do is I like to open up my valve. We'll start to drain it. And we'll drop the pressure. You can watch your gauge in the front. But remember, we do have it isolated so that gauge won't move. The other thing you can do is you can open up your relief valve to induce air in there. Or you can open up your bleeder here as well to get some air inside the top of the boiler to let it drain. And it doesn't take long at all. And remember about the purge mode and your coding level. It's your very first code that will help you purge the boiler if you do happen to get all the water out. I think for this scenario though, we'll be lucky enough not to get too much water. I did take the liberty of getting the part. So this is how your new flow switch will come here in this container. Here's your part number itself. You got to unscrew the plastic cap. And it's just a protective device that goes over your paddle itself. Next thing we want to do is it's hand tight. We're just going to reach in here and unscrew and inspect our flow switch. So I check, make sure there's no buildup on there. Take a look at it and see how it's done. Also, you might want to open up a valve, push some water out of there, or purge it again, and make sure that there's no debris or sediment down in the bottom of the pipe here where this can touch or rub, and keep it in a stuck position. And like I said, I have seen it with solder balls stuck underneath it. As soon as we pulled it out and we checked for continuity again, which is just another way of checking to see if this opens or closes and make sure that it's still functional. So what we would do in that case here is we're going to take our meter and put it on audible sound, on ohms, and then we can just put our meter down, and hopefully you have like clips for this test here so you can test it by holding it onto each probe itself. And then what we want to do is manually open and close the switch to make sure that it's any good. And if it works open and close, then that means you had something stuck inside your underneath your paddle. We'll take the new one Make sure your O-ring, there's an O-ring that sits on the very top of here. It's normally comes, that's why you have that plastic piece to hold you on. And what I always tell people is that brown wire here is always facing out towards the boiler. That way we know we got it in the right, going in the right direction. Got our washer in there, or our O-ring, sorry. Just hand tight. You don't have to over crank it. I would just check it before you go. Now we're going to just take that plug 33. Remember, it's plug 33. You can also, if it's not the switch here, you can also do a continuity check from your wire here. You're going to have to follow your wires back into the control itself and then find the 2 wires in there and do a continuity check, or just do a physical check on the wires to make sure it didn't get pulled out of the plug somehow, or a mouse chewed on the wire itself. Things you can check. Once we do that, we're just going to plug back in here. And now we're going to purge our boiler to get all the water back into the system. What I like to do is fill the boiler with my bleeder open. And as you'll see, you'll get a few bursts of air because we didn't drain the boiler completely out. And now we're pretty much completely free of air, so we'll take our key and we'll shut that. We'll fire the boiler to see if we have any more air in there. If we do, then we're going to purge it out through our isolation. Here on the left-hand side, there's a boiler drain that we install. And then on our boilers here, we always put our shutoffs on the supply and return so we can isolate the boilers. And then you can just shut the one on the left-hand side off and make sure you're feeding water into the boiler, and then purge the boiler completely. If you have issues of getting air out, I do recommend the purge mode on level 1 in your coating. Goes through a short test cycle. And we do hear air in the system. So what we'll do is we'll isolate the one valve. We'll go into programming here. So we're going to go into mode when we get there. So it goes through a startup cycle. I'm going to hit the mode button until configuration or config is flashing. Hit OK. Remember, our password is 12. Hit OK. And the very first one that comes up is your purge mode. So we're going to hit OK and put that to a 1 and then hit OK. And what that's going to do is it's going to put your diverting valve into the center position. It's going to call your pump on to help you purge the air out of your system. So now we'll open up our purge valve. You'll hear the air come out, you'll hear bubbles, but you shouldn't hear water going through your system. That means you have air in your system. What I found when I was first putting these in, it takes about 4 gallons completely to get these completely air free. All right, it sounds pretty quiet now. In the beginning you heard all that gurgling and noise, and normally when people call tech support, they say that they can hear the water going through the boiler. We know right off that it's mostly air. So now we'll open up the other valve, let it go out into the system itself. We'll take it out of purge mode. And we're going to get clear our fault. This fault should clear automatically. So once we change that pot, it should clear automatically. So now you can see there's no faults left on the boiler. So that will conclude today's class. We did fire the boiler. We didn't get it run. And we can do that by just going to mode again. Put in serve. Go to 60% and we'll just get the boiler to fire here. And we'll check it out. Okay, what I did was I opened up the faucet to get the combi to run. This is the KA model here. So we'll get the combi to run. It should fire. So now you can see the faucet came on. The flame did come on. We're up to 3 bars to heat our hot water. And now we know we fixed the problem. So a nice easy fix. That's what I like about Viessmann's. Everything's nice and easy to repair. You can get to everything. And it's very easy and simple to repair. Thanks for joining us for today's professional training on the OB fault code on the Vitodens 100 KA and HA boiler. And remember, these classes are for licensed trained professionals. Have a nice day.